Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are two of the most beloved TV shows of all time, and in this video, I'm going to pit them against each other. Three things to keep in mind before we start. 1. This is just my opinion and not to take it too seriously. If not for being in the same universe, I don't think many people would have even compared these two, given how different they are in terms of tone and overall story concept. It's like comparing apples to oranges. They're both amazing, just in different ways. Number 2, since both of these shows already have hundreds of video essays, reviews, reactions, and even parodies out there, I'm not going to delve too deep into everything a fan wouldn't already know. If you're watching this, you most likely have already seen both shows and have probably also made up your mind on which one you prefer overall. And finally, number 3. This is the first time I've made a versus video on TV shows, and if you watched my last few versus videos, you'll know that this is going to be my last versus video for a while. After this, I'll be switching to primarily making video essays as a result of the poll I ran a few weeks ago. If you haven't already voted on the poll, I'll leave a link in the comments, or you can just browse through my channel if you've got the time. With all that said, let's not waste any more time and get started. Breaking Bad follows Walter White, a struggling chemistry teacher who finds out that he has cancer. Knowing that he has limited time and even more limited funds to leave to his family after his death, he decides to team up with his former high school student, Jesse Pinkman, in order to make and sell meth. As he gets deeper into the drug business, the stakes get higher as they encounter several dangerous criminals, all the while keeping everything a secret from their families. As the title indicates, the story is about a man breaking bad and then getting worse with each season. While they maneuver their way into the drug business, they encounter Saul Goodman, a sleazy lawyer who helps them stay away from prison, all the while helping them establish relations with other criminals like Gustavo Fring and Mike Armentrout. The prequel Better Call Saul is about this lawyer, only it focuses on his life years before the events of Breaking Bad, back when he was known as Jimmy McGill or Slippin' Jimmy and not Saul Goodman. Oh, and by the way, I will be using all three of these names interchangeably throughout this video. The show starts years before the events of Breaking Bad, back when Jimmy was a lot more ethical as a lawyer and not as sleazy. Jimmy in the beginning of the show was basically a hard-working wannabe successful lawyer who wanted to make his brother proud, only it doesn't go the way he plans. His ethical plans rarely work out as well as his shady ones do. He is someone who used to do bad things but has since changed, or at least tried to, and now wants to do good, which makes us root for his underdog's journey. Unfortunately, due to circumstances, he finds himself getting pulled more and more to the shady past than to what could be a bright future, and the closer he gets to that darkness, the further he takes others with him, willingly or not. In this prequel, we also have a storyline that follows Mike Armentrout and Gustavo Fring. Their stories are more like a subplot that works alongside the main one with Saul. They do collide together by the end, but most of the time, these segments feel like two different shows taking place at once. Mike's side of the story is a high-stakes crime thriller, while Jimmy's side is basically a legal drama. Even though Jimmy's story has less life and death stakes, it's still just as suspenseful, if not more, than the Mike storyline. Since it's a prequel, we already know Mike's safe, and so is Gus. But with Jimmy's case, the suspense comes from how characters close to him will react. He really wants to make a name for himself in front of Chuck, and he loves Kim and values their relationship. So whenever he is in some serious trouble, we can't help but wonder what their reaction would be and what they would do if they found out about Jimmy's antics. Depending on the character, will they look down on Jimmy like how Chuck does, or join him in his downfall the way Kim does? The few times both storylines blend together, it's very memorable, especially by the final season when the stakes are at an all-time high, sort of like its competition. In my opinion, despite some great storytelling with these two storylines, they can't compete with the main story's progression in Breaking Bad. Not only does Breaking Bad have more life and death stakes from the very first episode, it also has the ability to keep raising the stakes higher up, as we're not following a cop, a lawyer, or anyone who has a foothold at a crime lifestyle. Instead, we're following a mild-mannered, normal middle-aged man who has never even been inside a prison cell. Someone who is as oblivious to the crime world and the people in it as a virgin is to BDSM dungeons. Only he turns out to be a natural. The stakes in Better Call Saul are also very paradoxical because the higher they get, the lower they go. Let me explain. When the show started and some of the stakes were established, most of it wasn't all that special. We barely knew Kim, Howard, Chuck, or Nacho, so their future wasn't much of a concern. Most of us Breaking Bad fans were there for Saul and Mike. Other pre-established characters like Tuco were just a bonus. There was absolutely no danger for the recognizable characters since we already knew their fate. It's only in the later seasons when we start to know and root for the newer characters. Unfortunately, in order for the stakes to get high, we need to care about the new new characters, and in order for that to happen, they need to play a major role in our main characters' lives. This then had an effect where certain characters' end became predictable. For example, Chuck plays a major role in Jimmy's life, so the fact that he isn't as much mentioned in Breaking Bad means he's most likely dead. He and Jimmy are way too closely intertwined for it to be any other way. Same goes for characters like Lalo and Nacho. The more we know about them, the more we also realize that neither of them are going to live for long. This is why half the stakes are gone as they rise. Given how significant Lalo as a villain was, to the point he gave Gus anxiety, it was obvious he would die. Same goes for Nacho, since he too is too connected with the cartel world for him to make it out alive. So the whole story is not what happens, but more like how things take place. And while most of it is really good, it pales in comparison to Breaking Bad, which has both what happens and how things happen at once. Although while we worry about the major characters in Better Call Saul have plot armor, and the ones who don't, like the new ones, start to become predictable due to their relationships with the major characters and due to their absence from the original show. All this to say, Breaking Bad had much higher stakes with great character development for the leads, where they were consistently pushed to a corner. The characters are really pushed to the limit in both shows, but in Breaking Bad, the pacing is a lot faster as Walt comes across as a more active character than Saul, or even Mike in Better Call Saul. Walter starts off the show as a good person who is stuck in a bad situation, and with each desperate attempt to keep himself away from trouble, he does something that only brings up more danger to him. Every solution he comes up with is basically a short-term resolve that almost always ends up with a larger threat close by. He creates the kind of meth that people will happily buy, only for him to almost get killed by the drug dealers themselves. When he does manage to sell drugs and make some money, he gets kidnapped and is almost killed by a sociopath. He realizes his RV is under suspicion and can lead to him getting caught, so he decides to get rid of it, only to be stuck inside it as his brother-in-law, who is also a DEA agent, surrounds the vehicle and even tries to break in. Each move he makes only gets him deeper into the mess, until it all collapses around him.
It's always been one step forward and two steps back.
As a fan of suspense, plot twists, setups, and payoffs, I personally found Breaking Bad to be more engaging as a story.
You stay away from him, or you will be one sorry individual.
Ever since I met you, everything I have ever cared about is gone. Ruined, turned to shit, dead. Ever since I hooked up with the great Heisenberg, I have never been more alone. I have nothing, no one.
Better Call Saul also had such moments, but it takes some time to get there. It does pay off very well by the end, but the very concept of Breaking Bad provides a fresh, original, high-stakes drama. Better Call Saul has great storytelling that is very well paced, especially in the later seasons, but Breaking Bad hits the ground running and even breaks the ground by the end. Winner, Breaking Bad.
I won.
Each show is basically an ensemble of various personalities. For now, let's start with the main leads. In Breaking Bad, we have Walter White, and in Better Call Saul, we have Jimmy McGill. Both characters have similarities that I didn't notice at first. For starters, they both descend into a morally bankrupt stage of their life by the end of their arc. Both have alter egos that slowly become their main personality, with Jimmy becoming Saul Goodman and Walt becoming Heisenberg. Out of everyone in the Salamanca family, they both happen to encounter Tuco first. Both perform a one last morally good act at the end of their journeys as Walt saves Jesse from the neo-Nazis and Jimmy confesses his involvement in Howard's murder. Both characters are played by actors who were primarily known for their comedic roles prior to the show, and they both even lied to their wives before getting stranded in the desert. I can keep going on. Out of the two, I think Saul's development was definitely more realistic. With him, it's not a straight downfall of his morality and more of a roller coaster where he keeps going up and down. Walter's arc is more like a dying country's stock market during an economic crisis. His morality keeps trying to stay afloat at times, but is mostly just sinking until even the ones on his side abandon him. I mean, the guy straight up goes from killing a criminal out of self-defense to organizing a massacre and even poisoning a child.
Even to a guy like me, that's cold.
One of the major reasons for this is because he enjoys being the man in power, to be in charge. His whole life he has been a pushover, a loser, and now that he is close to his deathbed, he realizes he has to do something. Once he gets the taste of power and the thrill of danger, he becomes addicted to that feeling. Despite being one of the smartest characters in the show, he makes some really stupid decisions, all because of his ego. Not accepting the treatment money from Gretchen and Elliot being the biggest mistake and the best example of what kind of a man Walter is.
You just had to be the man. If you'd done your job, known your place, we'd all be fine right now.
Mike was right. Jimmy, on the other hand, wanted to do good, until his own brother showed how little he trusted him. Granted, Charles did have his reasons, since he saw Jimmy at his worst for who he was, decades before anyone else. And Charles was right as well. Unfortunately, there was an actual chance that Jimmy could never have been Saul, if not for the discouragement of people around him. Whether it's Howard, Charles, or even the Kettlemans, they always looked down on him.
You're the kind of lawyer guilty people hire.
While Jimmy was pushed into a corner by people, Walt decided to go that route himself. It made him a more fascinating character as we see all the things he does wrong, all the people he manipulates, and some he even kills. This is one more difference between them. Over the course of both their shows, Jimmy never directly kills anyone. Sure, some do die due to his actions, but most if not all are indirectly caused, while Walt has taken lives himself multiple times, be it running over people with a car, shooting a person point blank, letting Jane die, or organizing a full-on explosion at a nursing home. Everyone expects Saul to be immoral, lawyer or not, due to his past, while Walter escapes justice each time because of his past records as a non-threatening normal individual. Walt uses his perception of people to do immoral acts and escape the punishment, while Saul tries to overcome his perception only to be pushed back harder until he can't take it anymore and actually breaks bad. Even though Walter is the more dramatic character, he is also by far the more interesting one in my opinion. Sure, Saul is more realistic, but fiction doesn't always have to be realistic to be better. Of course, it should not be too over the top either, but some cinematic license is fine, and Breaking Bad uses that license very well. The few times I thought things got a bit too silly were when in season 2 the two planes collapsed midair and debris fell up on Walt's home. That and the finale where almost everything goes according to Walt's plan without a hitch. But outside those moments, most of the show maintained its high quality. Also, Bryan Cranston's acting is phenomenal. His performance is right up there with the likes of Daniel Day-Lewis as Daniel Plainview, Marlon Brando as the Godfather, Robin Williams as the Genie, Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, and Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, to name a few. I could hear his voice and watch him act for hours without ever getting sick of it. Who knew Har had it in him?
I'm the grooviest dude who was ever grooved on.
Run.
You can't fool the tape. The tape sees all, and I see the tape. You are not a racewalker at all. You're nothing but a common jogger.
If you think that I am capable of doing this, then go. Put a bullet in my head and kill me right now. I'll do it. Do it!
And when I start to wiggle, my nipples, they will jiggle.
Once again, I have to be embarrassed for the both of us.
Yeah, what the hell is wrong with you? We're a family!
Also, one thing to note when discussing the way these characters were developed is that Breaking Bad didn't have a pre-established IP the way Better Call Saul did back when it aired, so the showrunners had to develop Walt's character much faster since they didn't know if they would even have a season 2 at all. It was a good decision because soon after there was a writer's strike that left the first season with only 7 episodes instead of the planned 9. Better Call Saul didn't have to deal with any of that. I mean, even Joey from Friends had 2 seasons, so Better Call Saul obviously was going to get an easy start when it came to the ratings. And while Better Call Saul also had huge shoes to fill, which it did, it still had the freedom to take its time. Since it was in the same universe as one of the most popular shows of all time, it could easily take a longer time developing Saul and giving him a more realistic transformation over the seasons. They didn't have that option in Breaking Bad, and yet they managed to create one of the most fascinating fictional characters of all time. That's a point on Breaking Bad's favor.
Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on!
As for the side characters, boy, do we have quite a few to pick from. In Breaking Bad, we have Hank, Marie, Skyler, Breakfast Boy, and my favorite, Jesse Pinkman, bitch. In Better Call Saul, we have Kim, Howard, and Nacho. Given the fact that both shows take place in the same universe and even follow some of the same characters, there are some recurring characters as well, from a major one like Mike to even a minor one like Hugh. And in case of Breaking Bad, even Saul Goodman himself plays a pivotal role as Walt's lawyer. Although Better Call Saul did have Gus, so it kinda balances out in numbers. Straight away, I think Better Call Saul has the better and more layered side characters, even if they don't start off as such. Kim, for example, starts off as a love interest, but as time passes, she is seen to be more than just that. She is a woman with her own demons that she had successfully suppressed for years working as a lawyer. Demons her mother gave her during her childhood by being a terrible parent. Then, with Jimmy, her stern, serious persona takes a break. She and Jimmy are by far the best couple in this show's universe, for better or for worse. They can just be talking about legal matters, scamming some moron, or just collectively hating on Howard. Their chemistry is just magnetic. She goes from her colleague wanting to work as a lawyer due to her passion for it, to being his wife and partner in crime over ruining Howard's career, and to finally divorce him when she realizes how far they have gone when their actions caused Howard's death. Once separated, Kim lives a boring life while Jimmy's ethics take a downfall. It really shows that Kim, in a way, was Jimmy's moral compass, and without her, only greed controls his life. Then there is Howard, who basically goes through a redemption arc of sorts, as he is initially introduced in the first season as this arrogant, snobby prick who comes across as someone who thinks he's better than everyone else, except Chuck, of course, who I'll talk about in the villain category. As the story continues, however, it turns out that Howard was not the douchebag that we thought he was. Sure, he still came across in a bad light when he kept Kim in the doc review, which also planted seeds for Kim's hatred of him, but he was somewhat justified. He gave Saul a chance to work with him. He tried to fix the bridge that he had previously burned due to Chuck's influence. He even went as far as to apologize to Jimmy over their past and after Chuck's demise. I personally started feeling bad for Howard from then onwards, as he struggles with guilt, grief, and insomnia. Little did I know how much worse his situation was soon about to get. The guy went from a prick to a straight up role model, or at least as close to a role model you can get in this universe, aside from Nacho's dad maybe. As for Nacho himself, he is yet another tragic character in the show. Nacho is basically one of Tuco's goons in the beginning, but just like every other character in this show, he is much more layered. I know I keep saying the word layered a lot, but it's hard not to say that because it's true. Nacho is very similar to Jesse's character in Breaking Bad, only Jesse was able to escape it by the end. Nacho wasn't so lucky. Although I do use the word lucky with some hesitation, as at least Nacho didn't encounter the neo-Nazis and wasn't a slave to them like Jesse was. Nacho is simply someone who got with the wrong crowd. He does have a soft spot for his father, however, and it's that love for family that makes Nacho turn against the Salamancas. Some of the most intense moments in this show come from Nacho, as you never know if he's going to make it out alive in this or that episode. He is not in the Breaking Bad storyline. His character is more connected to the cartel side of the show, and he is very close to the Salamanca characters. It was obvious that he was going to die in the show, only I never knew when, which made the scenes where his character was in high-stakes situation that much more suspenseful. From Nacho helping the twins during the shootout, to Nacho running away from the twins, and especially the time he tries to switch Hector Spills. I love the last one the most, by the way. Who would have thought? A character who is shot at multiple times in the show will have his most intense moment when switching some old guy's medicine. Even when he's about to die, he goes out like a boss.
I put you in that chair. For the rest of your life, you think of me. You twisted fuck.
And finally, we have Mike, who starts off the show with an incredibly emotional monologue, but then gets a bit sidelined as the show continues and makes time for other characters. He is still very engaging, especially since he's working with Gus in the later episodes, but I do sometimes miss the more vulnerable Mike. We got some glimpses of that when he worked with Werner Ziegler and when he's attending group therapy, but there were few and far in between. Thankfully, Mike being a badass is even better executed here, along with his interactions with Jimmy and Gus. Watching Breaking Bad after seeing his character go through everything in Better Call Saul makes his death that much sadder, especially the way he was killed. He was a badass, but instead of dying in some mission or going out guns blazing, he is shot by Walter just when he's about to leave. He too is someone who did everything for his family, yet at the end, it was all for nothing. On the bright side, him and Gus working together to take down Lalo was pretty good. Even when he goes against Gus to help Nacho, you can tell there is a lot of respect between them. And speaking of Gus, he also gets to keep shining as the dangerous stoic man we know and fear. Only this time, he is more of a side character too than a full-on villain like in Breaking Bad. In Breaking Bad, he is basically a man hell-bent on revenge, but also taking his time to exact that revenge. But in Better Call Saul, we see how he too is a bit more psychopathic than we had initially realized. Like sure, he had his cold, bloody and vindictive moments in Breaking Bad, but in Better Call Saul, we get all this and more of him as the ruthless kingpin, while also showing a vulnerable side to him, like the village that he dedicated to his late partner, or when he is shown to be very interested in the bartender but can't pursue a relationship due to his own lifestyle. And then to juxtapose those moments, there are scenes of him threatening Nacho using his father's safety, or when he tries to tell a story to a paralyzed Hector about the time he killed some animal.
When I was 7, much of the fruit was gone from my tree. Pieces were scattered on the ground, half eaten. I built a snare using branches and wire. It didn't take long for the animal to set it off. Broke its leg as well. I caught it. The merciful thing would have been to kill it. I kept it. It lived for quite some time.
And of course, his rant about the cartels while having a gun pointed at him by Lalo. That was an absolute boss moment.
Chacales. Eso es todo lo que hizo. Estúpido. Impulsivo. Y ustedes, los Salamancas, son peores parásitos que hay. Las putas.
As for Breaking Bad, it has by far my favorite side character in Jesse Pinkman. This guy goes through so much physical and emotional pain that you can't help but hope that things get better for him. There were some legit moments where I may have shed a few tears because of the situation he was in. Unfortunately, he is the only character I feel so strongly about. The other side character I really liked was Hank. He was a hilarious badass who, despite his masculine nature, did not hesitate to show a more vulnerable side, like when he suffers from PTSD after seeing a turtle explode, or when he regrets losing control and beating Jesse to a pulp. Add to that, he is a very smart man who was able to deduce that Gus was behind the meth business. Sure, it took some encouragement from the meth cook himself, but it still counts, as he was also able to find the laundry where Gus ran his meth operation. It's safe to say that I liked Hank very much, but I was not a fan of his annoyingly overbearing wife. People get so mad at Skylar, and granted, she can be very much a Karen at times, but I never thought she was the most unlikable of the bunch. I know it's pretty much a meme to hate on her at this point, but she too goes through a lot. She's not a good person at all, but she is still a person who's trying her best to keep her family safe, especially in the later seasons as Walt gets more and more unhinged. I personally found Skylar's sister to be far more irritating. At least Skylar was stuck in a situation where her family could be ruined. Marie, on the other hand, is just an attention-seeking bitch despite her life mostly being fulfilled. She has a great relationship with her husband. There are no financial problems. Her family is healthy, and yet she keeps getting jealous of Skylar. She even steals things for fun. Her stealing a tiara is the reason Skylar had a meltdown in front of Hank.
The almost 40-year-old pregnant woman with a surprise baby on the way. And the husband with lung cancer who disappears for hours on end and I don't know where he goes and he barely even speaks to me anymore. With the moody son who does the same thing. But oh, I see. Now I'm supposed to go, Hank. Please, what can I possibly do to further benefit my spoiled, kleptomaniac bitch sister who somehow always manages to be the center of attention? Because God knows she's the one with the really important problems.
Thankfully, both of the sisters get less annoying, more tolerable, and just overall likable by the end. Skylar especially becomes someone I personally rooted the most for, other than Jesse of course. Anyway, the side characters in both shows are very well acted, well written, and are very layered. But Better Call Saul had by far the more memorable side characters. It had the quality and the quantity. I still think Jesse is the best side character out of them all, and that too by a large margin. But he alone can't carry this round, especially when Better Call Saul gives even the smaller characters so much depth. You hate the Kettlemans, you feel bad for Light and Ernie, you love Huel, and you remember Werner Ziegler. Ziegler, not that one, was such a fleshed out character despite having a rather limited screen time. The actor portraying him did a great job too. Even the way his character died under all those stars was so good and so well shot. No minor character in Breaking Bad, whether it's Badger, Skinny Pete, Jane, Andrea, Gretchen, or Elliot, no one made me feel the way I felt with Werner Ziegler as a character. The only character who came somewhat close was Jane's father. He had some emotional moments, like when he was looking at his dead daughter's clothes. That moment hit hard, but not as hard as compared to when Ziegler realized he won't make it out alive and that he will never see his wife ever again. Both shows have great character interactions and chemistry between them as well. For every PTSD-driven Hank and his kleptomaniac bitch wife who apparently love to roleplay,
I'm not your baby, you punk ass.
Ooh, sir, yes, sir. Oh.
there were characters who slowly turned against each other, like Howard and Kim.
I know Jimmy, and you're wrong.
You know who really knew Jimmy? Chuck.
For every Skylar and Walt Jr. interaction, there was Mike and Nacho. For every Skinny Pete and Badger, there was the camera crew Saul hired. For every Jane and her father, there was Werner Ziegler and his widow. In conclusion, Breaking Bad has the best main character and the best supporting character as well. But Better Call Saul offers overall the better ensemble of side characters otherwise, with a variety of personalities and memorable moments between them. Winner, both.
How about it, counselor? Do you concur?
It's time for one of my favorite categories to talk about. Both of these shows have some awesome villains. In Breaking Bad, we have Gustavo Fring, Hugo Salamanca, the twins, Todd Alquist, a personal favorite of mine, and his neo-Nazi uncle. And let's not forget the least violent, yet almost just as conniving, Lydia. As for Better Call Saul, we seem to have switched from the last category, as this time, Breaking Bad is the one with the larger quantity of memorable characters in this department. What Better Call Saul lacks in quantity, however, it more than makes up for with quality. Here we only have two villains, but both challenge our heroes, or in this case, anti-heroes, every step of the way. The most obvious one is Lalo Salamanca. Then, to a lesser lethal extent, and more of a legal one, of course, on the Jimmy McGill side, we have Chuck McGill, his own brother. Given the amount of villains in this, I'm not going to discuss every character in detail, but instead, I'll just compare the best villain out of each show instead. In Breaking Bad, as much as I love villains like the twins and especially Todd, yes, they're all much higher on my list than Tuco, none of them come close to the man Gus Fring. As for Better Call Saul, it's Lalo. Before I discuss two of the best villains in TV history, however, I'd like to talk about Chuck McGill for a bit. If you don't mind indulging me, I promise it won't take long. Chuck is a very interesting antagonist due to his relationship with who he refers to as Slippin' Jimmy. I really hated Chuck, but also loved his interactions with his little brother, as rude as some of them were. Chuck is very jealous of Jimmy's social skills among his peers, and even their parents, which led to him carrying a deep sense of resentment towards him. He also refuses to believe that Jimmy is capable of any positive change in the long run, which, due to his own vindictive actions, turned out to become a self-fulfilling prophecy later on. Not to mention, Chuck himself is also incapable of change, as his mindset only drifts the brothers further apart. The fact that Jimmy wants to be a lawyer, which is literally the only skill Chuck is far superior at, makes all that negativity come out in the form of hatred and lies.
University of American Samoa, for Christ's sake? An online course? What a joke. I worked my ass off to get where I am. And you take these shortcuts and you think suddenly you're my peer? You do what I do because you're funny and you can make people laugh? I committed my life to this.
While Jimmy tries his best to change for his brother, Chuck not only rejects any change, but even insults Jimmy for just trying. This understandably frustrates Jimmy, as he has been the primary caretaker for Chuck over the years. Chuck is a rather tragic character in his own way, who due to his own stubbornness and jealousy, ruins anything good in his life. Just like Walt, he is a man with great talents, but little to no control over his ego and pride, which turns out to be his downfall.
Howard, I'm fine.
This is not what fine looks like.
Now let's talk about the main villain, Lalo Salamanca. While Jimmy's rivalry with Chuck was entertaining as hell, Saul Goodman's interactions with Lalo were far more intense. The Jimmy and Chuck situation is a lot more personal due to their family ties, and you know that neither of them are going to get murdered or tortured. Suicide and some emotional abuse, sure, but physically, both of them are on the safer side. That is not the case with Lalo. No one is safe when Lalo is around, whether you're a major character like Howard or even a minor one like an axe-wielding German who used to work with Werner Ziegler. If the twins are two T-800s, then Lalo is T-1000, but with the personality of Hans Landa. Lalo is more social than Todd, more intelligent than Tuco, more lethal than the twins, and has a crew of his own that makes Jack's gang look like a boy band. He even has the sexual appeal of Lydia. The guy just has the whole package. To make matters worse, Saul's charm and ability to talk his way out of any situation, which works against even hothead sociopaths like Tuco, fails when he tries to talk to Lalo. Lalo sees right through Saul, and he makes sure Saul knows it. As the stakes get higher with each episode, Lalo becomes more and more dangerous. He was introduced in the second half of the show, but by the end, he stole every scene he was in. So how does he compare against Gustavo Fring himself? Well, Gus also is known for stealing every scene in the Breaking Bad timeline. Gus single-handedly takes care of the cartel and destroys the competition. Not to mention, he also ends the Salamanca bloodline. Ironically, he starts with none other than Lalo himself. Honestly, when Better Call season reached the halfway point of season 6, I really thought Lalo might just be my favorite villain of this universe now. But then in part 2 of the season, something happened that brought Gus back on top. You see, Gus and Lalo have this rivalry between them, and unlike Gus and Walt, this one is between two equals who don't take each other very lightly. Gus knows how capable Lalo is, and vice versa. So when they compete, it's more like a chess game between two masters. Gus kept underestimating what Walt was capable of, and was too busy with the surviving Salamanca family and the cartels to focus enough on Walt exclusively. Hence, both villains also had a similarity, which is the way they died. Gus kicked Walt out and even threatened to kill him, instead of actually killing him when he had the chance, which led to Walt coming up with a strategy to kill Gus and actually succeeding. Similarly, Lalo had the chance to kill Gus, but instead of doing exactly that, he toyed around with him until the very end when Gus took him out. Of the two, I personally thought the rivalry between characters was better in Better Call Saul, but the execution at the end was better in Breaking Bad. By the time Gus meets Walt, he has already killed his greatest opponent, so his ego is pretty high, and it made sense that he won't feel threatened by a 50-year-old cancer patient who has little to no ties to the underworld until recently. Lalo, on the other hand, lost his edge at the end when he kept toying with Gus. Gus, at this point, is already is somebody Lalo knows not to take lightly, yet his cockiness became the death of him. Don't get me wrong, he still died in a fitting way, and the fact that Jesse at one point was literally dancing on Howard and Lalo's grave is a fact that I'll never forget, but his death was far more predictable than Gus. With him being in Breaking Bad, it was a guarantee that Gus was going to come on top, and Lalo bringing him to the very place that Gus had once very conveniently hidden a gun in was just an icing on top. Compared to Lalo, Gus's death was much more creative as well. Since Walt was the underdog, we had to constantly guess how Gus will be killed. The fact that the last Salamanca is the very person to kill Gus is also very fitting, and the final shot of Gus's corpse is just iconic at this point. I love both of these villains, and in my opinion, they're both two of the greatest villains in TV history. But if I have to pick one, I'll go with Gustavo Fring, as he literally defeated Lalo in Better Call Saul, but also because he just had a different aura around him in Breaking Bad. There was a mystery surrounding him as to who he was, where did he come from, what was he capable of, where did he exist within the power dynamics of the cartel world, since just a one-word text from him is enough to postpone the twins' killing spree. His interactions with Hank were also very memorable, and not to forget, we actually see what drove Gus in Breaking Bad, as there was also a flashback where he witnessed his friend get killed right in front of him, establishing why he hates the Salamanca family. Overall, Gus from Breaking Bad had the better backstory to establish his motives and a more fitting end to finish off his story. And to top it off, Giancarlo Esposito's performance was brilliant. Tony Dalton's charismatic performance as Lalo was great as well, but the way Gus kept changing from calm, social and friendly to cold, emotionless and scary in the blink of an eye was something special. Winner, Breaking Bad. The dialogues in both shows are very memorable, well written, and they fit the characters they've been written for perfectly. From the witty exchanges between the characters to the monologues during serious conversations, there is so much quality writing in both. Having said that, while both had memorable lines, there is an easy pick here. While Breaking Bad shines in high stakes or dramatic highlights, Better Call Saul not only does that equally well, but also carries the show's and its characters' energy through its dialogues during the casual interactions. Saul is a far wittier character than Walt, and it shows, from Jimmy's courtroom debates to Saul's sleazy schemes to just a hilarious remark. Bob Odenkirk has always something entertaining to say thanks to the writers.
Does a steaming pile of crap scream payday to you, huh? The only way that entire car is worth $500 is if there's a $300 hooker sitting in it.
He's not even the only one, however, as Kim and Howard also get to give great monologues here and there.
Hey, let's let Jimmy dig around the fire-damaged wreck where his brother died screaming. And then let's let him pick up a keepsake or two. That is so fair.
Jimmy, you can't help yourself. Chuck knew it. You were born that way. But you, one of the smartest and most promising human beings I've ever known. And this is the life you choose.
Of course, the best monologue goes to Mike himself as he confesses his part in the death of his son.
Broke my boy. I broke my boy.
Now, Breaking Bad is no slouch in this category either, as it too has great remarks and monologues from each character, like Skyler.
Someone has to protect this family from the man who protects this family.
Hank.
Tagging trees is a lot better than chasing monsters.
Jesse.
Just tell me you don't give a shit about me, and it's either this or you'll kill me the same way you killed Mike.
And again, Mike, who gives a very different yet just as memorable monologue in Breaking Bad as well.
The moral of the story is, I chose a half measure when I should have gone all the way.
One of my personal favorite exchanges was between Skyler and Walt in this scene.
You want to take me on? You want to take away my children? What's the plan?
I don't know! I will count every minute that the kids are away from here, away from you, as a victory. But you're right, it's a bad plan. I don't know what to do. I'm a coward. I can't go to the police. I can't stop laundering your money. I can't keep you out of this house. I can't even keep you out of my bed. All I can do is wait.
Wait for what? What are you waiting for?
For the cancer to come back.
I can watch this forever, but despite me loving so many dialogues in Breaking Bad, for every hilarious remark from Hank.
What are you saying? Like, I shot someone with like a gun? You? No. Only shooting you do is into a Kleenex.
We have one from Saul.
You're a shitty lawyer, Howard. But you're a great salesman. So get out there and sell.
For every powerful monologue from Jesse.
So no matter what I do, hooray for me because I'm a great guy. It's all good.
We have one from Mike.
He was the strongest person that I ever knew. I was the only one that could get him to debase himself like that. And it was for nothing. I made him lesser. I made him like me.
For every remark from Skyler.
You're my wife.
I'm not your wife.
I'm your hostage.
We had a rant from Nacho.
I would have done it for free because I hate every last one of you psycho sacks of shit.
For every badass line from Walt.
Say my name. Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
We have Saul trying his best to get out of trouble using his oral skills.
To show everybody that you are the man, but that you're fair.
In conclusion, Better Call Saul was wittier, funnier, more detailed, and since it has by far the bigger quantity of dialogue, the chance of some of them not working or coming off too cheesy, too melodramatic, or just boring was also much higher. Yet the show never fell that low. Hell, even the scenes you think are a bit too melodramatic or emotional turn out to be a way for Saul to manipulate people. I also like how Saul is a much better liar than Walt, which makes it extra impactful when you find out that certain scenes that come across as so genuine at times turn out to be just an act.
I'll never be as moral as him. I'll never be as smart. I'll never be as respected. But I can try.
I knew you could do it. I knew you had it in
so
you. I
great.
mean, yes, they have to reinstate you. Right? They just
Yeah,
have
did
to.
you see those suckers? That one ass was crying. He had actual tears. Jesus, Kim.
Moments like these are the reason Better Call Saul wins this round.
It's all good, man.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are both titans of modern television, with each carving out their place in both pop culture and meme culture. Breaking Bad started this journey with its gripping storytelling, unforgettable characters, and high-stakes drama, solidifying its status as a cultural phenomenon. Then, Better Call Saul continued its legacy by masterfully expanding the universe, providing rich backstories for newer characters, while also giving them their own development. It's time for the scores. Better Call Saul gets a 9.5 out of 10, and Breaking Bad gets a rare 10 out of 10. Whether you're a die-hard fan of Walter White's descent into darkness, or you prefer Jimmy McGill's complex journey to becoming Saul Goodman, there's no denying the brilliance of these two shows. Let me know which one you prefer and why in the comments below. Anyway, that's it for now everyone. Please like and subscribe so more people will know about this channel. From here on out, I'll be making mostly video essays. I hope the few who have managed to stay this long have enjoyed it. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.